All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for a K-12 Insight webinar. Before we kick things off, just a few housekeeping items. We will be taking your questions and feedback throughout the entire webinar, so if you have any thoughts or questions that pop up, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can use the Q&A function. We'll be watching both. And then after the webinar, you'll all receive a $25 DoorDash gift card. So keep an eye out in your inbox for that. It will go to the email that you registered for the webinar. And also we are recording today's webinar. And now it's my pleasure to hand it over to Sarah Maston to kick things off.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much, Olivia. I appreciate that introduction and the warm welcome. Nice to meet you all. I really appreciate you joining us today for the Lunch and Learn about managing communications and workflows while creating meaningful conversations. As you now know, my name is Sarah Maston. I am one of the regional account directors here at K-12 Insight. I am also a Texas native. I live here in San Antonio, Texas, where thankfully right now I'm close to many lakes and rivers to help endure the Texas heat that we all just love so much, I know. Here in a moment, I'm gonna actually introduce Leanne and Casandra and hand it over to them here in just a minute. So we can hear from the school PR professionals that you've come to hear from today. Just a little bit to kind of kick us off and get us started. We all know that school districts do a really excellent job of communicating outbound messages to their stakeholders. Each of you probably have a handful of tools at your disposal that do this and do this really well. However, what we've heard from districts that we work with is that handling those inbound communications can sometimes be a much larger challenge that you face. How do you get those things back in? We also know that trust is the foundation of a thriving school district, and building those relationships and effective two-way communications is important. I think it's also probably safe to say that trust is also important for building your district's brand and attracting and retaining students, families, and staff, especially today when there's so many options for our community members for just out there in general. So a few key ways to help build trust include listening to stakeholders, clear and open lines of communication, responsiveness, and just being proactive in general with some of those communications as well. As we begin our discussion today, I'd kind of like to pose a question to the group, something to think through, and please feel free to also share your answers or thoughts on this in the chat. So what are some of the challenges that you face when communicating with district stakeholders? And we can chew on that if you'd like. Again, feel free to pop those answers in the chat. We'll incorporate them, and I'm sure we'll have some conversation around some of those challenges as we move along today. So for any of you who may be unfamiliar with K-12 Insight, a little bit about us. We deliver the only customer experience platform that's built specifically for K-12 schools. We've actually worked and partnered with over 400 school districts across the nation that use Let's Talk to do a handful of things, from building trust and creating strong community connections, helping to improve district-wide communications, identifying problems really before they become a crisis, helping to promote family and community engagement, and then really focusing on delivering a superior customer experience for your community. In today's conversation, we'll actually explore how Corpus Christi Independent School District is simplifying communications while helping to build that trust and creating meaningful conversations with their stakeholders. So all of that being said, what I like to do is just kind of hand it over to Leanne and Casandra, the people you've come here to hear from, not me. So Leanne, Casandra, if you'd like, maybe I'll toss it over to you all to just share a brief introduction of who you are, your roles in the district, and a little bit of history on your district.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Leanne Libby. I'm the Chief Communications Officer here at Corpus Christi ISD. Do appreciate that we're the ones standing between you and a good DoorDash. So appreciate you joining us today. I'm wrapping up my 6th year with the district. We're a mighty team of 7. We are a large urban school district. And since I've been here, we've been through 3 bond proposals that fortunately have all passed a major hurricane. We were part of the Hurricane Harvey crowd, a water ban, certainly the pandemic, and let's not forget the clowns. So we've certainly had our share of crises, and I'll talk a little bit later about how we rolled out Let's Talk, but we have found it helpful for, as Sarah mentioned, those inbound communications, and really kind of, certainly there's social media, but that's not a platform you control. So certainly have a platform where we can have productive conversations with those who truly need our help. And with that, I'll throw it over to Cassie.
I am a communications specialist, part of Leanne's team. I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary in April, so I've been here just a little bit over a year. It is the first time I've worked in a public school district setting. Prior to that, I worked in a communications agency as a consultant, and before that, I was in higher education with A&M Corpus Christi in their marketing communications office. So just kind of what I'm responsible for here is doing a lot of going out to campuses, getting the stories, those great stories that are in our schools, and sharing it with the community. So just kind of promoting all the great stuff that our students do. Also do photos, kind of like Leanne said, we're a mighty team of 7. So anything really that the team needs, from writing to taking photos to event planning, and anything else you can think of.
Great. Thank you both for that awesome introduction and overview of kind of what you do there in the district. So let's go ahead and just kick off the discussion and kind of talking a little bit more about your district's communication strategy. Let me just start off with a question. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the journey of your district's communication strategy and what challenges you faced leading up to, I guess, today.
Sure. So I think, everybody on the call can relate. Certainly most of us, primary objective for us has really been to increase enrollment. That's obviously, in Texas, how we're funded. So that has been primary for us. And then, as Cassie said, part of that is really telling our story, really engaging our community and showing them what they could be a part of if they're enrolled with us. And then along with that, building that trust, what we've been talking about this morning has just been so important, being authentic and really just increasing that two-way communication. That's been a real growth area for us. And that was something that we really wanted. And certainly it's, as you mentioned, Sarah, a competitive marketplace. There are more choices than ever. And it just behooves a school district to think like a business. I know sometimes it's hard to think about. We just want to be about loving kids, and we certainly are all about that. But we really do need to think like a business, because this is a competitive market now. There are a lot of choices for our families, and we have to be more active in sharing our story and providing that exemplary customer service so folks want to come be with us and stay with us.
And I think what I'm hearing too, Cindy actually shared in the chat that getting stakeholders to understand the why we do what we do. It sounds like that's been a pretty key focus for you all as well, specifically with telling your story as a district and kind of getting the word out. So that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it. What would you say that led you to looking for a solution to really support communications and customer service in your district?
Right. So certainly customer service is that secret sauce, because, as I said, it used to be you went to your neighborhood school and that was that. And now, we have choice. And of course, just like anything else we do in life, we're going to go where folks treat us well. So we originally had hired K-12 to come in and do some on the ground customer service training. And it was through that we learned about Let's Talk. And so we were all set to roll out end of 2019, beginning of 2020. We were all ready to go. And here comes the pandemic, which actually, having Let's Talk ready to rock and roll was really kind of a blessing in disguise, because certainly we all had so very many questions. And so we kept it at the district level at first. We felt that our campuses were too overwhelmed to be ready to take that on. But we quickly got everybody comfortable. And what we found was it was a a way that we were able to increase our reach with our internal folks. Anything from I can't reset my password because we're all online now and I just don't remember how to do that, to, you know, questions I have because I'm dealing with COVID and I read the guide, but I still have some questions. So people could really cut through the red tape and get those central office answers. And then certainly from our community, we had a very high level of questions right off the bat because of COVID. We had to do our first outdoor graduations in many, many years, and that led to a ton of questions. And that seems like such a little thing, but just, you know, emotions were really running high, and being able to be very responsive was extremely helpful.
And I think that's important too, right? It was a moment where none of us knew what was happening and taking place in the world. And to your point, the emotions, right? Especially when it's your baby that's graduating, or you are the senior and you just don't know what to expect. Having an avenue to turn to be able to ask those questions certainly helps to resolve some of those fears or concerns when you've got people to ask, and especially in a time when we were all used to being able to just go knock on a door and no longer could do that. So as you said, a blessing in disguise. I'm glad that we were already at the point to kind of turn the key to make that work out. That's really great. So you've kind of touched on a little bit of this throughout the conversation so far already, but broad strokes, what is your communication strategy today?
So again, today we are really heavily focused on customer service. We're focused on, you know, again, that bottom line is really trying to grow our district. So many of us have lost students and who just simply aren't in school. And again, you know, there are just so many choices out there. So our strategy is to really tell the story of our district, to profile those achievements that we do have, to position ourselves as a partner with families that we're ready to help them through that pre-K through 12 process. And so ramping up that customer service, Let's Talk has been a part of that for us.
Okay. So I'm hearing that Let's Talk has been a part of the customer service approach in what you're doing. How else would you say, if anything else, or anything that you'd like to share and how it may have supported your strategy so far?
Yeah, so certainly enhancing the two-way communication. And so I'm pretty, you know, strong on the background because I was here when we began. But as Cassie said, she's just hit her 1 year. And one thing that Cassie has done is really kind of hit the ground running. She took on Let's Talk right away and immediately became a very strong partner in the department of helping. And she can really kind of speak to the day-to-day and kind of what she has seen, and certainly from somebody who wasn't in the K-12 environment. And Cassie, kind of what can you speak to of how it has helped you either help employees or just kind of help kind of be that liaison between campuses and the public?
And like Leanne was talking about, and we've been saying, you know, that two-way communication is so important. You know, I wasn't here through the thick of COVID and where emotions were high, but people are still kind of dealing with, you know, the after effects. You know, this year we went back to a completely normal graduation. Mm-hmm. And so just being there for people, you know, asking the questions like, oh, last year we could only have 2 people. Can we bring, you know, all of the grandmas and the grandpas and the tias and the tios, you know, can we do that this year? And so just being able to be there for them and answer those questions quickly and effectively. And so like in our day-to-day, we've really built that in, where myself and my coworker, Alex, we kind of have the two topics. You know, we've broken it up into customer service and anything else. And every morning we come in and we review those topics, see if we can deal with any of them or if they need to be reassigned to other areas. I think we have done a really good job of creating topics that are specific, you know, so that when somebody asks a question, their question is getting exactly to the person it needs to go to. They don't have to go through like a bureau, like all the red tape to like figure out who do I need to talk to. And if they aren't at the right place, we can really reassign it very easily. So like my day-to-day tasks are just getting in there, seeing what the questions are, seeing if the question is in the right location, maybe doing that initial fact finding, because sometimes people they just want to be heard. Like they will ask us like, how do I get my school supply list? And so it's like, okay, well, tell me more about what grade your student is, what school do they go to? Tell me a little bit more so I can get you, and I will tell them so that I can get you to the right location. And we just are able to have that conversation. Other things that we've done, in our day-to-day is, like I said, we've built those topic areas with the owners, and we've helped them build their teams. So, it's a main person, but maybe they've also identified members in their area that can help answer those questions as well. And then also developing templates for questions. Like Leanne said, we can see, maybe not just when a crisis is occurring, we can maybe anticipate questions for those cyclical things that happen every year in a school district. So we know every year registration is coming up. Well, what kind of templates can we put together ahead of time so that when we start seeing these questions come in, we can get those questions out faster, quickly, and effectively.
And I would add to that, those are great points. On the back end, it's not about a gotcha, but it is about that accountability. And we all know how those inquiries come in on the phone or on the email and they get lost. Folks get transferred multiple times, or, I don't know what y'all's email looks like, but my inbox is a frightening place. And this kind of gives us one little hub, and we can look and see, there's a dashboard. We can look and see if that response time is our goal response time. And so, for example, people can send us a question and they get a pop-up saying that in our district, we'll get back to you in 2 business days. And so the timer starts running and we get alerts when there are overdue responses. And that, again, helps us with our goal of providing that exemplary customer service.
And I think everything that you both just shared really speaks to being very intentional with that customer service approach in the district. Everything that from just using the topics to make sure that it gets to the right person, building out some of those templates so that way you're providing a uniform response that is still personal to the question that's being asked, but it's got that customer service touch on it. Especially when you're looking at other departments that may not have such a sense of customer service. Maybe they've never been in the private sector, because many educators never have been, right? This is what we were born and bred to do, was to touch the lives of children and to educate them and to support their growth, right? So I think that that's really important. You guys have talked a lot about your enrollment, and I think everything that you're doing absolutely builds up to helping your efforts to grow and retain students, which is something I think a lot of districts are trying to focus on, right? How do we retain those kiddos? I'd love to hear more about that enrollment process. Obviously, that is one of the first stages in which these families, students, community members are not reacting, but interacting rather with you guys as a district. What has that kind of looked like for you all? How have you been providing a positive enrollment experience?
Sure. So, registration is the #1 clicked button on our site, because anybody who has kiddos knows that anywhere that you're registering from pre-K through college can be a really intimidating process. And, we have our share forms that need to be filled out. And we are very fortunate in that the current director of that department, as well as her predecessor, completely got on board with Let's Talk, and were very responsive and answered those questions. And again, it's breaking through that bureaucracy or that perceived bureaucracy. I don't know who to ask a question to. I'm new to the district. You want me to do all these forms? I sent in my forms. I haven't heard anything yet. And they can, reach out to us and say, I have a question about the form, or where do I even begin? And they're getting those answers back fairly quickly, or someone is giving them a call or whatever they need. And I really do think it has helped with what can seem to be a very intimidating process of getting through to someone, a real person who's going to help you. And again, it's not, being transferred on the phone 12 times or being lost in somebody's email. We can kind of track all that. And like Cassie said earlier, then maybe within that registration, we see everybody is having trouble with the same section. Well, gosh, maybe that tells us we need to go improve that process, or we need to put a little, template in that that Cassie crafts in conjunction with the registration folks to kind of preempt some of those questions, or not preempt them, but, you know, to go ahead and answer. So you get your answer even before you started to ask the question. So again, it really does help us with that service and that two-way communication that's so important.
Well, and then also too, right before we started the presentation, we were talking about we're entering in our summer hours. And so for a lot of our schools, you know, that means a break. You know, teachers aren't there, maybe not, they're not fully staffed. Well, this also allows, you know, a parent who maybe knows that they're going to have their child go to this school, instead of calling the school and maybe not getting somebody because they're only there during certain hours, they can come directly to our Let's Talk, and somebody with the district will answer them. So not only do they feel like, oh, you know, the district is responding to me, so my concern is that important, I'm getting a response. It helps us not interrupt, you know, that customer service and care, so that we're able to continue supporting them throughout the summer. Also, I've seen a lot of questions come in from people who are transferring from out of the city. Maybe they're coming from another state, they're coming from another city. They may not know what school they should call or exactly who they should connect with. So this allows us to help them, again, get that question to where it needs to go. And I think also what's really cool about this is that we are able to use our Let's Talk phone number and that email address, and we put it in a lot of our communications that go out to the public. So if you see any of our graphics on registration, it'll say, have a question, you know, text us at, and it'll have our phone number, or email us at Let's Talk, and it'll have our email address. So I think it's really cool that, you know, we put that on social media, we put it in our releases, you know, it's kind of everywhere. And with our text messaging, especially, anytime we push that, we see an almost immediate reaction of questions that we're getting from the community. So it just helps us not interrupt any of that, you know, there's no lag time.
And piggybacking on Cassie is it does not interrupt. However, what I also appreciate is there is the ability when we have a full summer shutdown, and Cassie usually takes care of this, we hop in and we add that to our Let's Talk. We can change our settings, and so it'll notify people, hey, thanks for reaching out, we're on our annual summer break, we'll get back to you just as soon as we get back, kind of like an out of office as you would in your email, just to again adjust those expectations. And also we can set up our whole school calendar, so when one of our holidays kicks in, it doesn't kind of count against us, as it were, on the response time, because the system knows that that's a school holiday. And so it does, you know, I know we all have a lot of pressure, like on social media, to be really on 24/7, and this does provide that relief while also maximizing the responsiveness.
And I think that's important. Again, really resonates with that customer service experience. If they don't know that you're out and they're not familiar with your district hours, some people don't know that many districts do a 4x10 and take Fridays off or leave early on Fridays. So they're sitting there wondering, where's my response? Saturday, Sunday, Monday rolls around, and Monday is really the first day you're touching it, but they don't know that, right? So being able to get ahead of that messaging was something that'll say, hey, by the way, we're not here, but we've received it. We promise you we're going to get to it. Just we're taking our downtime like you guys like to as well. So we all need that sometimes. But there is that seasonality, right, in school districts, and you see those ebbs and those flows, and sometimes they start to flow in during the summertime when we're just not there. You know, a few things that I heard also while y'all were sharing that, you know, Texas is a hotbed for growth, right? So Casandra, you mentioned we might have families that are coming in from out of state, which is a very common theme across the state of Texas, I think. And as we're focusing on trying to grow our districts and retaining those students, I think it's important for us to remember, right? We might literally have just one opportunity to engage with some of these families, and making sure that they're engaged with a positive experience and met with that positive experience is, I'm sure you guys would all probably agree, very important, because we don't want to lose them before we even see them through our doors. So I did also want to just kind of mention, I know y'all kind of made reference to the dashboard. For anybody that's not familiar, Let's Talk has a dashboard on the back end that allows you to kind of capture this data. So Leanne, I think you mentioned it, you know, as you're starting to see some of these issues that are questions, common themes that might arise that you didn't already have kind of pre-thought out or programmed, what you can do is kind of start collecting that data. So you get that actionable information and data that you can start to then gear your messaging towards, or get ahead of it before it becomes something that would actually flow through to your department or within the district as well. So that's really cool. Being able to lean on the data that's kind of being built and derived within the system is really nice. Casandra, you mentioned the texting, but we kind of breezed over it. You talked a little bit about pushing some of those messages out. Tell me, just maybe like very high level, what does that look like when they start coming back into you guys?
What do you mean? What does it look like?
When you send something out and you say, hey, you guys, send us a text message, what does that look like? Just a quick like rundown of the process. Does that make more sense? I'm sorry.
We'll, you know, whatever it is that, you know, we're doing, even if we're sharing news or, like I said, registration, graduation questions, because we share the calendar, we'll just put on there, like, if you have questions, we try to funnel it to the Let's Talk, because as Leanne said, that's our choice platform that we would like to use to communicate with people. And it's very interesting. Almost immediately we'll get those text messages, and they very well may or may not have anything to do with what the topic was. So it may be registration, but somebody, like, it triggers people's brain and they're like, oh, I've got a question. They whip out their phone and they'll ask just a random question, and we can answer it very quickly and effectively. So we'll see them in the dialogues, and it'll show that it comes through the little text message. And what I think is cool about it, you know, you're limited to how many characters you can have, but it's almost like we can have a conversation, because when people send it via an email, you know, I write my whole response, and, you know, we close the dialogue, and they'll rate the service. But with a text message, you know, we can have an entire texting experience. So I can ask them a question, they respond back, and a lot of time it's very quick, within a couple of minutes, and then I'll give them the answer, and I can ask them, great, is there anything else I can help you with? And a lot of times they'll be like, no, that was perfect, that's awesome. And then we can close the conversation out. So it's really cool interactions, and I think not just for the person, but for myself as well, because I really feel like, wow, I was really talking to somebody, and I was really able to help them and provide them with a good experience.
And I think it's really a way that we're meeting people where they are. I mean, I think all of us, you know, there's probably folks on this call who, if we're honest, you know, have answered a text during this chat. I mean, we're just texting, you know, so much, and it's a format people are familiar with, they're comfortable with, it's short and sweet. And school districts for so many years had the reputation of, well, you need to fill out this form in triplicate, and maybe in 10 days somebody will get back to you. And the fact that, you know, I can text my large school district with a random question about, you know, my password, and they answer me within a few minutes, you know, it really helps build that good relationship, and really helps them take a fresh look at working with the district, as we used to hear.
And I mean, too, it's like Leanne said, it's a little question. A lot of times people looking for us, they just want the answer, you know. So a lot of what I end up seeing is it's like they need to call their school, but like she said, maybe they're busy, maybe they're running from here to there with their kids. So, I mean, I can say, hey, you need to contact your school's front office, but if you tell me the name of your school, I'll get that phone number for you, you know. So it's just those little things to make it easier for them, you know, going through their day-to-day life and being able to still communicate with us.
Brittany, I see your question about the daily routine. Again, like Cassie said, kind of checking it first thing in the morning, but we can also set up our notifications to be notified however, you know, they want. Now, I griped about email, but that's how I get my notifications. Others on our staff love the app. They're very hooked on the whole gamification of getting a perfect score on their responses. They like the convenience of the app. So it's kind of whatever your comfort level is. When things are hot, you know, you're getting some more, but on a day-to-day basis, you know, it's been pretty manageable for us. And I think for staff, people are going to roll it out how they want. We have a button for every single school and most departments. And I think folks have found it, again, they can get those notifications, in their email or on their phone and quickly deal with them and move on in their day. So for us, it's been fairly seamless, but certainly that is what you're going to confront, rolling out anything new is, oh my gosh, it's one more thing. And I think our folks have found that really it is an additional tool, but it's pretty fast. It's those responses, again, like Cassie said, people are just looking for their answer, and you're going to know 99% of those answers, and they're going to be thrilled to have their help. And most of our interactions, are completed in one question, one exchange.
Mm-hmm. And two, like you said, it is seamless, like day to day. I can't really say, oh, I spend this much time with it and I spend this much time, because it is, I'll come in and check first thing in the morning and make sure the dialogues are where they are. I have access to where I can see all the questions in all of the areas. So sometimes, a question may have gone to the wrong location or the wrong person. So we're definitely making sure that the questions are where they need to be with the person they need to be with. But then it's kind of throughout the day, like I get the email notification. So as things come through, I take care of it. It's very quick and easy, just to ask a question, make sure it's where it needs to be. But I would say probably on like a weekly, if not monthly basis, I go in there and review that the correct person is the owner of the correct topic. Especially during the summer, we get a lot of movement in our principals and leadership. So just making sure that as people move into different areas, there is a point person for each area. Also, just going through and reviewing the dashboard, like Leanne said, if we see, oh, hey, you know what, questions are starting to come in about W-2s, it's tax season, maybe we should make some templates. And then just probably last year, once during the year, I went through a huge review of all of our topics and our owners to make sure that everybody was where they were. So I would say it's more seamless. We're kind of touching it all the time, which is great because like Leanne said, customer service is really important. It's actually one of a big initiative with our district is that we are really focused on creating relationships and ownership through another project called Capturing Kids' Hearts. So it's something that we're always touching and we're always working with.
And I would say, just like anything new, the proof is in the pudding. And so as kind of our staff members get used to it, really to me, I'm a little more excited than probably is necessary when I'm in a meeting and they say, oh, I'm working on XYZ project. Do you think we could have a let's talk button for that? And I think, to us, that really shows that they have seen the value in the tool and that they know that what they're working on is going to generate some questions and they want to be responsive. They want to offer that customer service and they're looking to us to see if this is an appropriate, area for them to do so.
Our pre-K program is a great example. We've always had registration, but this year we've had a really big push on pre-K. We want to get more students into that. And so the person in charge of that has asked if she could have her own topic button. And so we've been able to create that for her. And so not only are we getting registration questions, but we're getting pre-K specific questions.
I love that. Thank you. And thank you so much, Brittany, for the question. I appreciate that. There's a lot of really good things that you guys shared in there. I think one of the things that we hear from districts a lot is kind of what you all touched on quite a bit, which is, oh my gosh, Leanne, almost to take the words right out of your mouth. Oh my gosh, is this going to be one more thing? Like, I just don't have the bandwidth. So I think hearing how it kind of helps to streamline those processes that you're already really doing anyway, but helps to keep it manageable, I think is kind of key. So thank you guys for sharing that. I'd love to hear more. We're kind of getting close to time, not quite there, but I'd love to maybe hear a little bit more about your future goals for your communications department and your overall strategy.
Well, before Leanne, I was wondering real quick, one thing that I'm really excited about is I love teaching and sharing the new technology. So one of the things that we are going to start doing is doing a little bit more training because like Leanne says, people want to just get in, they just want to do it, and they don't want to take the time to kind of learn all the ins and outs. And so what we're going to start doing is during the principal meetings that we have every year, we're going to offer like little training sessions. And we're looking for different ways that as new principals come in, new assistant principals come in, that, you know, I can give them hands-on, because they want that customer service experience too. And that person, I get to have Ellie help me when I have troubles. So I'm that person for our principals. So we're going to do a little bit more training and kind of teaching them, you know, what their inbox looks like, what their dashboards look like, how to build their teams, how I'm here to support them by creating templates and things like that. So that's one of the strategies that we're going to start using going forward.
I absolutely love that. It starts with the schools, right? So I love that.
Absolutely. And so I'm just speaking to your question on our future goals. Again, I know I sound like a broken record, but it is just so very pressing that we focus on enrollment. And then to do that, we need to, you know, position ourselves, you know, even though we're a large district, that we're a home for students, that we have, you know, because we are large, we can kind of offer something for everyone. And we know that our students are a diverse group. And so it's telling those stories, like Casandra said, and that she's so gifted in doing. They kind of give you those little slices of life that show you that there's a home for every interest. And so that, of course, is our big area. I would say right there with it, and something that really came out of the pandemic is we all know how important internal communications are. And I would say right next to customer service, internal communications is a big one for me. And I was so glad to see how we could strengthen through our internal newsletter, which we've really beefed up, which is a whole nother story, but also, you know, using that Let's Talk to really strengthen our internal relationship, because those are your ambassadors. Those are the folks who are talking to the people that you want. You know, really, we all know word of mouth is so much stronger than anything else we can do and that we love to do, but it really comes down to your ambassadors, your employees. And so if they feel like you're a responsive district, if they feel like they can get answers to their questions and that they're getting information that they can trust, they're going to share that with their smaller communities, which is going to help you in the long run. And it's just, you know, frankly, the right thing to do. So again, like I said, you know, the password, the W-2, you know, is it time to apply if I want to switch campuses and go teach somewhere else? All those questions coming in. Our HR, they've been good about hopping on with Let's Talk as well. And they do get a fair number of questions. Employee benefits gets in there. And so it's really, you know, some of them, again, it can be so intimidating. I mean, I'm here every day. It's just, you know, it's where I work, no biggie. But, you know, for some of our employees, it's like downtown is so impenetrable and they don't even know where to start. And unfortunately, we haven't had that strong history of good service. You know, your phone call went to nowhere land. And so I think this has been a turning point for us and letting people know that their question is going to get answered and get assigned to the correct person, so they're not being passed around.
And I mean, it's quick and it's easy. It reminded me of a story. I actually just had a baby. So while I was out on maternity leave as a new employee, I had to do something and access, you know, some kind of portal that was connected to my computer here at work, but not at home. And so I was like holding a baby, using Let's Talk to ask a question of where I could go to get some information, and it gave it to me right away. And I was like, great, I could go on with my day. So like you said, it also makes it easy as well.
Well, and to your point, word of mouth is so powerful. And if we're not treating our internal team members, right, with that same level of customer service, then what are they going to share with, you know, when they ask somebody or somebody asks them in their smaller community, as you described, hey, what about your school? Like, is that, you know, I'm thinking about moving. Is that a neighborhood I should move into because it feeds into that school, right? But more importantly is that human capital is really hard to, like, that's important more so now than ever, I think, when we're all looking and fighting for ways to build on our current teacher base and retain them too, right? It's not just about retaining our students and our families, but also our staff and our teachers. And they're a part of your school and your community, and you want them to continue to bleed the colors of your district, right? So I think that internal focus on customer service within is really, really important. That's my personal stance. But thank you for sharing that. I have a totally off-topic question, but Leanne, I need to hear about the clown.
When there was nationwide just kind of this rumors of people dressed as clowns threatening schools, and it really caught on and took off quickly very shortly after I was here. And so we did not have, this was long before we had Let's Talk, but it certainly would have been an area that we would have set up a template response to reassure the community. But it was wild and woolly there for a short but intense time. And so, yeah, you just kind of never know what's going to happen in the day. And so, again, this is one more tool. And Brittany, I saw you followed up asking about email, and email is certainly not going away. Those phone calls aren't going away, the in-person. But, again, with email, it's getting forwarded here and there. It's getting lost in my very overwhelmed inbox. And this kind of keeps it in the dashboard, which kind of helps you track that response time. It helps you spot those patterns, which are so important. If you're getting the same kind of questions, over and over, but, maybe that question was in Cassie's email and it's in my email and I forward it to my assistant. This kind of keeps it all. We can see who all has been involved in the conversation. We can tag somebody who needs to be involved. We can, like I said, spot those patterns, see those response times, and really kind of help us look at things in a more global way versus kind of a one-off email that then when I go back and look for it, who knows.
And then one thing too that we haven't touched on, I actually prefer forwarding questions to Let's Talk because it also builds a history with that person. Which was something that I just saw recently. So you may email me and I may deal with the question and I completely forget who that person is. But in Let's Talk, it keeps track of every dialogue that they've had and every interaction that we've had. So I can kind of go back and not only see the trends with the larger topic, but maybe see the trend with this person. What kind of questions have they asked, over the span of their school year? How have we helped them out over that length of time? So I think that's also very beneficial versus the emails where we just wouldn't be able to remember all of that.
Right. And if we're trying to counsel our superintendent and they're saying, how hot is this topic getting? If there's kind of emails bouncing around, we may not have a true gauge, but if I can look in and say that I got, 25 questions overnight about the clowns, we're going to need to deal with it. It really kind of helps us. Again, it just really keeps everything, in that one place, and just quickly at the touch of a button, reassigning things, whether, because email can kind of be like transferring those phone calls. I'm going to forward it to Cassie because I don't really want to deal with it. And Cassie says, not it. And she sends it to another department. Meanwhile, the person, is waiting to hear back from somebody, but I thought Cassie took care of it because I have no idea because I hit forward and moved on. Whereas it stays in the system, I'm like, oh gosh, that conversation hasn't been closed out yet. I need to ask, Cassie what she needs from me to kind of get it finished. Or Cassie's going to tag somebody else and say, hey, can you get an answer this afternoon? Because I know this is a project that you, Alex, were working on.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I'm sorry, I didn't know about the clowns. I think I joined this space shortly after that. So, day in the life of a school PR professional.
That was a nationwide fun one. So
yeah, that's very interesting. So, and I think everything that you just described kind of talks to our earlier point of kind of that dashboard in the background, right? Having that data and analytics to be able to lean on to empower your conversations with your board or your community as things are coming up, and to prepare your school leaders for, hey guys, by the way, we're hearing a lot of this already this morning and we just got here. Just an FYI, you might start seeing calls or someone showing up at your doors asking these questions, and we want you to be prepared. So I think that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. We are almost right at time. So quickly, I want to just kind of open up the floor for any questions that any of you might have for Leanne and Casandra today, or even myself. So I kind of take a minute to allow for anybody to chime in with anything that they may have. And while we're kind of waiting for anyone, y'all feel free to come off of mute or pop the questions into chat. But while we're doing that, I just want to say thank you both, Casandra and Leanne, for joining us today. You guys are doing an awesome job there in your district, and we really, really value our partnership with you and everything that you're doing to support your community. So thank you guys for hanging out with me today and being that gateway, as you said, for somebody to get their DoorDash too. So, which I love.
Thank you very much. And if anybody kind of want to look at how our district is using it, it's the red Contact Us tab on our website. And again, it's kind of maybe a good way to explain it. I should have thought of it earlier. It was kind of, it's a contact us button, but way beyond that. That's just kind of the entry door that some folks use.
And as you guys can see, my contact information is displayed. So feel free, Leanne obviously just put out the offer. Feel free to contact them through their district's page. Thank you for that offer, Leanne. I never like to do that because I don't want to put more work on your plate than necessary, but you all feel free to reach out to me as well if you have any questions. I'd love to talk with any of you about, even if it's just a brainstorming, just to talk about what you're currently doing and if there's any opportunities for improvements, either with Let's Talk or not to say that what you're doing is not perfect, but sometimes a healthy conversation just gets the juices flowing too. So any questions from the audience before we wrap? Give it a good teacher pause here. All right.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Great job today. It was great having you.